What is going on, everybody, and welcome back to the CEO for You channel. You join me with a very special guest. We've got Liam from Blue Army TV, and
Yeah,
today we are going
thanks for
to
having
be
me.
no problem. It's a pleasure to be doing this collab. I think it's really cool that we've been able to come together and do this. Obviously, I'd watched your videos, which made me want to do my videos, so that was quite cool. But we're just going to be ranking Carlisle's transfer window in two parts. We've got a part one here on my channel with 6 players. And then we'll do a part two over on Blue Army TV's channel with the last 6 players. So, what's your overall thoughts on the transfer window? Is what you're thinking on it?
Uh, I'm not really sure, to be honest with you. A lot of them have yet to sort of make their impact. We're starting a lot of the season now with almost nearly the same starting 11 as we did in League Two. I think all of the sort of changes in the transfer window have been up top, and we're still kind of waiting for. I'm sure we'll go into it with some of the signings, but some of the midfield signings to sort of make their impact. We've signed a few players that we just were very familiar with and we did have on loan last season. So
Yeah,
yeah, it's an interesting one.
yeah. I've summed it up by saying it's an odd transfer window. I think
It's very odd.
it's there. But first player we've got it's a new face. We've got Luke Plunge, obviously from Crystal Palace. Um, I've sort of give this a 6 out of 10. I just he's
Yeah.
obviously started a few games for us, and he seems to be growing into the games. I just think we're very top heavy for strikers. And if you were to maybe sort of rank the strikers, not to compare our players against each other, I don't think Luke Plange is a massive upgrade on some of the players we've already got. Um, but I think it's a good use of the loan system because obviously we used Palace with J.K. Gordon last year, and we're sort of keeping that relationship with them. But we've only got him to January. I think it's a very he could hit the ground running in December, and then he's not our player in January. I just think it's a very strange signing, and you get two stories from it. You got Lincoln fans who's like he's not great, and then Derby fans that are like you've got a real player. So I just
Yeah. But the Derby thing's a long time ago now, isn't it? I think he went to Palace for upwards of £1 million. It is an interesting one because he does need to get his career back on track. And as you say, Carlisle are really top heavy now.
yeah
I feel like Simpson's maybe gone with a bit more of a quantity over quality. We've got what 7 options now up front, and as you say, Luke Plange probably isn't the top of that list at the minute. But he's just bought as much and hope that some of it sticks. In my opinion, I think I'd agree with a 6 out of 10 for Plunge because look, he could come good. He's starting to show little bits of quality in him, but he still hasn't got his first goal, which at this point in the season, with him playing the games he has, you'd kind of hope he'd get off the mark by now. And I don't think he's going to be starting games with someone we're going to talk about later with Coyote coming as well.
yeah. He obviously he hit the post against Shrewsbury, didn't he? But
Hmm.
he just I mean I don't think
Quality shot, by the way, as well.
it was
I
great
felt really
effort.
sorry for him.
Great effort. If any of our strikers could start scoring, though, that would be wonderful. Um, so we've also I put out on socials as well, just to engage the fan base, and the fans gave this a 7 out of 10. So very similar to our rating there with Luke Plange. But moving into the defence, we've got Sam Lavelle, who came from Charlton. Now, I think this is a solid signing. I think his experience at this level with Charlton, and I believe he was the captain of Morecambe, I believe.
Yeah,
I,
when they got
I,
promoted.
yeah, I think it's a good one. I think he's grew into the position of the club really well in that back five. I think he's got better every time he's played for us this season. My only concern with it would be, and it's my same concern I've got with Hunt. If we play the back four with Sam Lavelle and Huntington as two centre backs, we have absolutely no pace at the back. I think we'd get rinsed against like a fast striker or something. But in the back five, I think they've got that protection of obviously. Well, it would be sort of Jack Harmon, Finn back normally. John Mellish is obviously
And
everywhere on the
Mellish, yeah.
pitch. So
Plus
I
Callum Guy in that system, he does protect the back five a lot. Callum Guy in that system.
Yeah, definitely. I've went with a 7 out of 10. Um, because I didn't want to be too generous. But I think it's a solid signing, Sam Lavelle.
Yeah, for me, he's somewhere in between a 7 and an 8. I'd probably stick with the more conservative 7 with it being so early on in the season. I think he had his best game he's ever played for Carlisle against Shrewsbury. He looks a real decent buy. He's definitely the Morgan Feeney replacement. I doubt we'd have got him if we'd have managed to keep Morgan Feeney, but
Yeah,
in terms of replacing him, he's done everything he needs to do. And I think, look, it's saying a lot that I think we've only conceded more than one goal once this season. That was against a promotion chasing Exeter City in what was really not really his fault. The defense isn't our problem,
yeah,
and he's part of that solid back five. It's not as in like the striking positions where he's constantly chopping and changing who's up there. He seems to know his back five because they pretty much pick themselves because they are that much of a quality, and Sam Lavelle's a big part of that. So he's been one of my favourite signings in this sort of summer transfer window, and it was obviously one they managed to get fairly early on. And as you mentioned, the experience at this level does it takes him a long way.
definitely. I think he got. Did he get into the team of the week as well for the Shrewsbury game? I believe.
He did, yeah. The
Yeah,
official one, and it was weird because everyone was talking about Callum Guy, but he didn't get into it, and Sam
yeah.
Lavelle did.
Yeah, yeah. I agree with the Morgan Feeney. I think he's the replacement for Feeney. Hopefully, if Sam Lavelle does leave, he leaves on better terms than Morgan Feeney. But that's a topic for another day. Uh, so the next one we've got, he is a familiar face, and that's Alfie McCalmont. Now I'm torn on this one because I think it's a really good signing. I was shocked that we pulled it off, to be honest. Obviously, it was in that sort of week where we got like Robinson back, we got Barkley back, and everyone was like, "So
Yeah,
when's Alfie coming in?" And then he actually did come in, and I was a bit like, "Wow," because obviously Leeds have just been relegated. I'm not saying he would start in the Championship, but I don't think he'd look out of place on the bench to come on for 5 minutes or so, 10 minutes. So I was shocked when we pulled it off. I think it's a good signing. I was a big fan of him last season, and obviously what he did was it in Rochdale. I thought he looked a top player. I think
yeah,
Roch
and then
Oldham,
Oldham, I think it was as well.
yeah.
Yeah,
And then last season he played. I think he was a brilliant player last season. Obviously, we didn't have much depth in really any position last year, so he always give like solid performances. He was always round about that sort of 7, 8 out of 10 mark. He never really put a bad performance in. I
yeah,
think not to be negative and say that I expect Mox to leave. I think he would fit into the Moxon role really well if Moxon was
yeah.
to go.
To be honest, when he signed McCalmont, my first thought was, well, that's Mock's gone.
That's
So
Moxon,
I'm
yeah,
very pleasantly surprised that he hasn't gone because I've been saying for a while. I completely agree with you on that they're very similar players,
yeah,
which is why I think maybe they're not starting together. You need that sort of they're both the ideal number 8 where they can attack well, they can defend well. They're that box to box midfielder. Whereas
yeah,
in that midfield three, Simpson likes to have a defensive midfielder. He's box to box and then he's attacking midfielder. The classic midfield trio.
yeah,
Which is why I don't think you can really play him and Mox together. And with Mox being our best player, it's very difficult to see him being dropped for McCallum.
definitely,
For me, he's the ideal Moxon replacement. And I almost feel like there was a bit in the club where they were kind of expecting Moxon to go. Um,
yeah,
but it hasn't happened. And now we're stuck with two brilliant box to box midfielders. And, he's a brilliant option off the bench. And obviously, he can play further forward, he can play further back. He played sort of a defensive role more when he was at Oldham, when they were in that sort of a relegation battling season. One of the seasons they managed to stay up, anyways. But
yeah.
yeah, he's a brilliant signing. It's just not necessarily what we needed.
Yes, I would agree there. I think what you're saying there as well with his defensiveness, I noticed that last season, if Moxon was to go forward and maybe Callum Guy is sitting, but he's quite forward as well, McCarmont would
Yeah,
just come back and sit. And I thought that was really good because I, I can't see players in his similar position like a Gibson coming back and sitting in a defensive role for a
yeah,
longer period of time. He'd come back and then probably go back up the pitch. But I noticed McCalmont was very much, I need to sit in. I don't mind staying here for 5 minutes and let them just run the show type of thing. So I think it's good. I've went with an 8 out of 10. I think the social media went out 8 out of 10 as well. So I just what you're saying though, it's like now we're stuck with, which isn't a bad thing, but we're stuck with
No,
two
well,
class.
you say stuck. Stuck probably isn't the right word.
I don't mind
We're
being stuck with
blessed
them.
with two brilliant players in the same position.
Yeah, so that's maybe the only concern, and we're not saying we're lacking creativity this season, but we're needing that bit of spark of creativity to start getting goals from open play.
Yeah,
If
and you
if
said
that's
eight. I'd probably agree with you and the people. I'd probably go somewhere between a 7 and 8 again, but I'll be a bit more optimistic today and give him an 8. I think he deserves it.
spot on. Back into the defence, then we've got Jack Robinson up next. I I think this is. I don't want to say it's an odd one. I think this one sort of sums our window up. I think we've strengthened positions very well, and we've got a lot of sort of cover where you've got say Jack Armer can't play, like obviously the Accrington game. Jack Robinson can just come in
Yeah,
and do the same position, the same job, which I think it's something we really struggled with last season. Obviously, our bench was like depleted at times, and we maybe went 1-0 down. You're looking on the bench, you're like, we've got absolutely nothing that's going to change this. Where this season, we've got an array of options, and I think it's a good signing in terms of backup. I don't see him starting over Jack Armer because I think Jack Armer is absolutely class. And I've given him a 5 out of 10 because I haven't really seen him play, to be honest. Jack Robinson. I'd seen him the few times he's played for us, but it's a tough one to rank because, as we said, I don't see him starting over Jack Armer anytime soon. But he's a good option to come off the bench.
yeah. For me, I'd maybe rate him a little bit higher than that. I'd maybe give him a 6 or a 7, just because I don't think he's ever really been. The purpose of that signing isn't for him to come in and be our new left back. They've brought him in to be a good sort of young option at left back. He's there to sort of challenge the position. He's there to be excellent backup if we were to need it. He's just making our squad that little bit bigger and that little bit stronger. Where we're now in a position where, to be honest, people don't care about the Papa John's Trophy. It's now a case where Jack Armer doesn't need to play them games. You can just chuck Robinson in. So I think that's what he's
Yeah,
been brought in for. Been brought in as a young player to develop, and to be really good backup to Jack Armer, which is what I think he will be. So in terms of what he's here for, I think he serves the purpose really well.
yeah,
So I'd go a little bit more positive and maybe give him a 7. But again, he's a bit of an unknown quantity. Jack Arm could get a big injury. Robinson could come in and be dreadful. He could come in and be, the next Danny Granger. We just don't know. But for me, I think he is a good player, and I think he did show signs of it in pre-season and obviously last season when he was on loan with us in League Two.
yeah. And just touching on the sort of Papa John's there, I'm a fan of it. I don't mind it. I think obviously the chance to go to Wembley is fantastic. But I looked at our team against Accrington. I wasn't surprised with the team selection, but I looked at it and I was like, it's not a bad team. Like, last season
Mm,
we were starting maybe more first team players than you would have liked. Where I looked at it and I was like, that team can compete. It I
yeah,
don't
yeah.
want to say a lesser level, but obviously we're in a group with two League Two teams and Forest is 21. So I looked at it and I thought that's a team that can go out and do a job. Obviously, if we're touching on the Accrington game, we played really well in that first half and a great finish from Corey Whelan, to be fair, but it just wasn't on our side. But we competed in the game with what could be sort of. I said it in my video. I don't want to say it's our second team, but like our second team basically. I thought they competed quite well. So
Yeah, it's a team full of our bench players, really. It's our second team, but our second team is good. We've got that bigger squad that our second team can almost be our first team. There was a lot of
yeah,
quality in that. You look at Jaden Harris. He was on brilliant form in pre-season. Um, like you said, Robinson, who people seem to rate quite highly. Corey Whelan, who was starting. I think he started one of the playoff semi-finals, or even no, he started the final, didn't he? Because Ben Barkley couldn't play. But
yeah.
yeah, we've got quality players on the bench that are starting these games.
Yeah, and if you want a sort of English youth player to come through, I don't think anyone's better than Paul Simpson at that sort of development. I think at this level, he's one of the best for. like young player development. I don't want anyone in the comments saying like Pep Guardiola, because we're talking two different ends of the spectrum there. But and on the topic of young players, we've got Tavi Blade, who's came in for Fulham from Fulham on loan. I really like this one. I think this
Yeah.
is a. I think if we had signed Terry before Luke Plunge, I don't think we signed Luke Plunge, if I'm being honest. But obviously Terry
No.
Blade came in a bit later. What I've seen of him, which is obviously very little because he's only just came through the door, but he's rapid, isn't he? He brings that
He's so fast.
pace and energy. He's really lively as well. He just wants to get on the ball, and he seems to be confident in the squad. Like he was celebrating Joe Garner's goal before he'd even touched the ball, which is like to think he's only been here for like a week or so, and he's already got that much confidence in his teammates. That's a really good thing. And I seen him after the Shrewsbury game. I seen him and Anderson, and he was just like it's like a little ball of joy. He was just buzzing to be in playing football, which I thought was like it's class because it's coming from Fulham all the way to Carlisle. It's one long trip to like
Yeah,
live
it
here.
is a trek, to be fair to him.
So the fact that he's just like he's just buzzing. He seems to be buzzing to be here. Yeah, I'm a fan of this one. I've went with an 8 out of 10 on this because I think his pace is going to cause defenders problem. Cough Morgan Feeney, and I think that is something that I don't want to say we lacked it last year because J.K. Gordon was fast, but Edmondson isn't the fastest. Great striker, but I wouldn't say he's the fastest. Joe Garner isn't the fastest. So if we can bring on a Blade off the bench and he can bring this pace, or he can start and tire defenders out, a bit like what Dennis was doing last season, I think
Mm.
that's a quality sign. And the fans have went with an 8 out of 10 on this one as well. The only thing I've got on, it's not really a thing on Terrier Blade. I think some of our fans on Twitter, especially, they look at a player's record and go, "Oh, he hasn't scored in 2 games. He's awful." And it would be nice to see one of these players just prove that wrong. And I think Terry Blade could quite easily do that for us because I know when he
I think
came
he's
in,
already doing it.
absolutely. I think that Shrewsbury performance, as I say, it was brilliant. He was a key part in Garner's goal. And if he can continue like that, as I say, off the bench or even starting, I think he's going to be a real good player for us this season.
Yeah, no, yeah. To be honest, he's one of the ones that when we first signed him, I wasn't overly confident in it because obviously, you talk about people on Twitter. I've got to say, I'm maybe guilty of being one of them that you look at his record, didn't really get into the team in League Two for Wimbledon and was struggling last season, but having seen him since he came in, he's sat me down and he's sat a lot of people down as well. He just seems to be even the Port Vale away game, which I was unlucky enough to be at. He comes on and he is one of the bright sparks of the team. He's just so fast. And you
Absolutely.
look at the Shrewsbury goal as well. Like you say, he was involved in it. For me, it's pretty much his goal. It's him that fights, that gets the ball, that manages to put the ball into. I don't know whether the assist goes down as him or Alfie McCalman's with his little flick on after that. But that goal was made by Terrier Blade, and he's proven to be an excellent sign and just is a nightmare off the bench. If you're sitting there, you've been playing for 60 minutes, you're tired, and then all of a sudden this little rapid Finnish guy comes on and just absolutely burns you for pace. There's not really much you can do to stop that. And for me, he looks like a real good bit of business from them both. I'm not going to go as far as to say it's an 8, but just quite yet. But from what I've seen, 7 out of 10 seems fair for me.
Yeah, I just when you're talking about him coming off the bench and being rapid, I seen someone call him the Cumbrian Mbappe. So there's a comparison. Um, but to bring this video to an end, we've got one more player, and that player is Sean Maguire. Now, for me, this is a faultless sign. I think
Yeah,
I love Sean Maguire. I really liked him before he came to Carlisle.
same.
And then when we signed him, I was just like, how on earth have we pulled this off? Um, I just think he's a quality sign all around. I think for this level as well, League One level, I think, I'm not going to say he's one of the best strikers in the league, but in terms of experience in the clubs he's played at, I don't think there's many that can have a CV sort of like his. Obviously, he's played in the Championship for the majority of his career, obviously at Preston and Coventry. And for me, he's the one that I know I would if well, like back five is pretty like set in stone. You're going to have a job getting into the back five, but I think Maguire should start most weeks, if not every week. I think he's that player who can be linked up with another striker, and the other striker will complement Sean Maguire, if this makes sense. So
Yeah.
I think like a Luke Plunge brings like height and strength. You've got Edmondson who would bring like height and strength. And then you've got like Maguire, who's the smaller, who seems to win every single header, mind. Nothing on his height because his effort's untouchable. I think he's put effort in every single time he's put the shirt on. And then you put him next to in the Blade, who's he's just got the pace to work off him. You've got Coyote, who's got the pace to work off him. Am I missing any strikers? Joe Garner, that's two very experienced strikers. If you put their experience together, it's probably the most experienced partnership in the league because Joe Garner's been playing for about 60 years. So for me, Sean Maguire, I've honestly maybe went a bit out there with the rating, but I went with a 10 out of 10. I think this is a superb signing for us. I read somewhere, I can't remember where it was, that he's on £4 a week. So if he is on that much, I'd like him to start every week. But yeah, for me, I think every time he's played, his efforts, you can never fault his effort, and he's. I don't want to say this for like every player, but he's growing into the club, into the shirt.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
I watched his interview yesterday, and he was saying that he's really happy to be here, and he's fit in really well. Which he's Preston's not far really, but again, being this north, that can unsettle some players. So I am really happy with the Sean Maguire side. I think goals will come. I unfortunately don't think he could be given the goal against Shrewsbury, but I think sort of once he gets one, there'll be another couple to follow, and I think he'll just hit his stride once he gets that first one for us.
Yeah, absolutely. I've been a little bit more conservative with it, and just I've gone with a 9 out of 10, which is still
Still
it's still
high.
top of the range. Yeah, it's still probably the most I'll give in this video. From my understanding of what Paul Simpson said, with Trafford going to Burnley, I think the money from that deal has been used on the Sean Maguire signing. I think that little bit of money coming in from that has made this signing, possible. And that's
Yeah,
what Paul Simpson seemed to say. He said it's not a deal. When we signed him, he said a couple of weeks ago we couldn't afford to do it. We've found the money to do it.
yeah,
It's only a 1 year deal, which is the only problem with this signing. But yeah, he's 29. He's in the, he's in meant to be in his prime. He's looked quality every time he's been on the pitch. He looks like one of our bright sparks at the front. He's
yeah,
just got that bit of quality that other players don't have. And obviously, like you said, so many games in the championship for Preston. Paul Simpson obviously linking up with his Preston connections to get this one done. But yeah, look, I think it's a fantastic signing. I think if you can find the proper strike partner for him, which possibly Plunge, possibly Coyote, um, I think he'll, he's too good for this level on his day, and I'm just excited to watch him play, and hopefully by the end of the season we've got him on a little bit of a longer term contract.
absolutely. You say with the Preston link, hopefully it's Brad Potts next. Bring Brad Potts back.
Maybe a little bit ambitious.
Yeah. So anyway, that's the six from my side of the video for part one. I think we've covered, defense, midfield, and attack. We've obviously got six more over on Liam's channel, the Blue Army TV, which will be linked in the description. But thank you for taking your time and coming on my channel. I really appreciate it. I think it's been really cool to do.
Well, thank you. Thank you for having me. I remember I started watching your videos, you know, quite shortly after you started when you were on about 200 subscribers, and since then you've taken my crown as the most as the most subscribed. So, yeah, no, it's a pleasure to be on the channel.
Yeah, I actually started it when Chris Beach was in charge, but
Mm,
sort of university just took over, so I stopped doing it. And then I don't think I could have picked a better season to come back into the space
yeah,
with last year. Um, but the only reason I started it because I watched your videos you obviously do sort of the sit down reviews, and I thought, well, I could do sort of I don't like calling them vlog because I'm not vlogging the game, but if I do
mm,
sort of a vlog video, there's two different styles there, and obviously it
yeah,
works quite well because we're both on the 800 subscriber mark and stuff, which is
Yeah.
It's always good to, especially like a Carlisle channel. It's always good to see the growth.
Yeah.
And that's
It
really
grows
good.
with the club, doesn't it? I notice our videos tend to do a little bit better when Carlisle are doing better. So
Absolutely,
long may the
absolutely.
club grow.
Yeah, another trip to Wembley this year would be nice. But that wraps up my side of the video. As I said, part 2 will be linked in the description. What are you guys thinking on the 6 we've mentioned in this video as well? Let me know in the comments down below. If you haven't already subscribed to Liam, obviously go over there and give him a subscribe. But for now, I've been CU04, and I'll see you in the next one.
Big swings, put your hand to the bat. Put me in the ring, you'll go out in a bag. 'Cause I sing what I mean and I bring it to the mad light.